Sir, I just can't wear this suit today. It's the middle of summer and I'm at risk of getting heat stroke, Neville stated with concern laced in his voice. His boss, Stu Carter, pointed to the red Santa suit on the desk and with a stern tone directed, "Nonsense. You can and will wear this suit, regardless. It is part of the gimmick this month. Now get your ass in that suit and out the front pronto. It's time to sell some cars." With a grit of his teeth, Neville left Stu's office and did as he was told. As he stood at the front of Stu's auto sales, waving a flashy sign that read, "Christmas in July sale," he did the best he could to suppress the surging feelings of anger he felt for Stu. Big Stuart Carter, Mr. Hotshot with his fancy car, hot rod of a wife and cushy job. The man never worked a day of hard labour in his life, yet he seemed to be in the lap of luxury, while Neville stood outside sweating buckets beneath that damn Santa suit. Stu was inside his nice air-conditioned office, no doubt receiving yet another blowjob from the secretary he was involved in an affair with. Neville could overlook his envy of Stu's riches if Stu was actually a nice guy. However, he was the worst type of scum, rude to most all of his employees, and his attitude just screamed egotistical prick. Normally Neville would just let it go, but today he was tired and beyond exhausted. He hadn't got much sleep for the past few days because his wife was in some sort of bad mood and constantly going on loud verbal tangents, even into the wee hours of the morning. Not to mention, on top of his lack of sleep, he'd had a flat tire that morning, which made him late, and he also spilt his coffee all down the front of his shirt. Needless to say, his day had gone to hell before it even started. In fact, his whole life felt like a form of hell in a way. Sure, he could tell old Stu to fuck himself and he could quit, but he had a wife and kids to support. Quitting wasn't an option, therefore making him feel even more weighed down by life. Several hours had gone by and Neville was on the verge of passing out. The direct sunlight beaming down on him in that heavy suit had raised his temperature to maximum levels. He decided to take a break and went inside to get a drink of lemonade he brought in with his lunch, and that was kept in the company fridge. With sweat dripping in his eyes, Neville popped the cap of the lemonade and took a long swig. The other associates who were inside started snickering as they looked his way. Disgust quickly adorned his face as he spewed the liquid out of his mouth and all over the floor. The bitter, distinct taste of chilled urine coated Neville's mouth and was now causing him to gag as he continued to spit onto the floor. Boisterous laughter flooded the room until Stu marched in. "The fuck is this mess, Neville?" "Ask them," Neville shouted, pointing to his wicked co-workers. Stu turned to the three other men in the room, whose faces were reddened from laughter and malevolent glee. They swiftly shot their hands up in mock defence, like it was no big deal. One of them, whose name was Kevin, joked, "Oh, come on, it was just ice-cold lemonade." Another co-worker chimed in and teased, "Yeah, squeezed fresh just for you from Kevin's dick." All three men burst out into hysterics, as did Stu. Neville was mortified beyond measure. His heart began to pound, and though it didn't seem possible that he could get any hotter, a new rush of extreme heat consumed his body. Without any shred of sympathy, Stu finally halted his laughter and barked, "Get this mess cleaned up and get back out there. I'll have no lazy asses milking the clock." With a wave of his hand, Stu made a gesture of dismissal towards Neville and then went into his office. The other co-workers, who still continued to snicker at Neville's expense, among themselves finally dispersed and got back to what they claimed to be work. Neville stood motionless. The walls around him felt like they were about to collapse. His body temperature had peaked to a maximum level due to the blind rage he now felt. His vision was blurred and his hands involuntarily balled into fists. Right then something snapped inside his mind. As the saying goes, he was seeing red. He would have said fuck it all and marched out of that job right then, but a plan formed in his mind. A sinister, deliciously vile plan. It was one that brought an evil grin to his weary face. With that in mind, he was able to finish his shift and clocked out. On his drive home, Neville turned up his favourite tune and happily sang along. He was in better spirits because of the plan he'd cooked up, not to mention his wife and kids would be away for several days because they went to visit his mother-in-law. This meant that he would have the house to himself to do whatever he wished. He made a quick stop at the grocery to pick up a few items because on that night he'll be cooking himself a very special dinner. Once he arrived home, unloaded the groceries and changed into more comfortable clothes, he took a seat at the kitchen table. Popping open a frosty cold beer, he took a long swig and then turned to the right. There in the seat next to him sat Stu, who was looking worse for wear. After all, he had a pretty nasty looking contusion on his forehead, not to mention he was barely conscious at the time. Neville had given him quite the shiner at the office. They'd been the last two remaining at the end of the day, so it helped Neville's plan come together even more beautifully. Neville wasn't without his own battle scars. He caught a right hook to the face from Stu in the struggle, but Neville thought the massive black eye it would leave was far beyond worth it. In the end, Neville won the fight after dishing out a blow to the back of Stu's head that finally rendered him unconscious. For the time being, Neville was trying to relax and regain a bit of his energy. It was strenuous work dragging Stu's body from the trunk of his car and into the house. Neville was already on the borderline of exhaustion from the heat he endured all day, let alone the physical struggle to subdue Stu in the first place. None of that mattered to him, because Neville was the kind of person that once he formed a plan in his mind, he was dead set on seeing it through. Neville snapped his fingers in the air in front of Stu to get his attention. He gestured to a second bottle of beer on the table and asked, "Are you thirsty, boss? Here, let me help you with that, since you're a little tied up right now. Don't worry, it's fresh, just like you like it." With that, Neville started to chuckle as he picked up the beer and headed for Stu, who was restrained to one of the wooden chairs by rope. With one hand, Neville pried Stu's lips open forcefully and then poured in the warm, frothy liquid until he began to choke and sputter. "Oh, what's wrong? Don't you like the taste of piss either? Well, too fucking bad," Neville seethed as he poured the rest down his throat. Stu attempted to bite Neville's fingers at one point, but this only made him more determined and rough as he kept his mouth splayed wide open. As Stu thrashed about in his chair to try and resist the piss, bile rushed up from his throat and spewed from his mouth, covering his shirt and Neville's hand in the process. Neville scoffed in disgust at first, but then quickly replaced that with a laugh that thundered throughout the kitchen. He took his vomit-covered hand and patted Stu on the cheek and said, "Seems you can't hold your beer in either. What a pansy." Stu countered back with, "Fuck you, man. You're going to regret having ever fucked with me. I will ruin you." Neville's eyes darkened dangerously as he locked with Stu's. A wide smile suddenly adorned his face as he stated, "Stuart, the only thing that will be ruined around here will be you, and I'm just getting started."